But first, the most significant new car to be launched this autumn. 7 years ago, Vauxhall came out with a medium-sized family car that very rapidly knocked Ford off their #1 purchase in this sector. It was, of course, the MK3 Cavalier. At the very same time, they started development work on the next generation of Cavaliers. They come out this month, not before time perhaps, because now Sierra outsells Cavalier by a ratio of 2 to 1. The question is, can Vauxhall repeat that trick again? There's no doubt about Vauxhall's intentions. They're mounting the most comprehensive and carefully planned attack on Ford's dominance of this particular sector. There are no less than 22 new Cavalier models, all built around that same combination of a hatchback and a saloon running side by side. There are now 3 petrol engines from 75 brake horsepower to 130, a 1.7-litre diesel with more to come, a 4x4 saloon next month, and a hot rod 16-valve, 138-mile-an-hour version next spring. And all the new models have been completely redesigned, basically from the floor plan upwards. The new body shells, for example, about 1 inch wider than the old, about 2.5 inches longer to give more room inside, particularly more knee and leg room in the back, which is one of the old Cavalier's biggest weaknesses. This is the sporty version, the SRI, 2-litre engine, 130 brake horsepower, top speed better than 120 miles an hour. I've been driving it in the hills around here, and I must say the new car seems to have a lot to offer. Very lively, very responsive, excellent new suspension. Now, that improvement in ride and handling was one of the designer's biggest objectives. Another was a significantly improved aerodynamic performance. You only have to look at the outside of this car to see how big a part the wind tunnels had to play in its design. But the fact is, if we want the advantages that go with low coefficients of drag, like better fuel economy and much less wind noise, then we're just going to have to learn to like these soft, rounded, jelly mold-like shapes. But that having been said, it's no doubt it's a very considerable achievement indeed to make an average general-purpose family car like this as smooth and as slippery as they have. They've got the coefficient of drag down to 0.29, so they've broken that elusive 0.30 barrier, basically by being ruthless, really, about stripping off from the outside anything that hangs out into the airflow, by wrapping the doors, for example, around the A-post to smooth off that junction again over the roof line here, big aerodynamic rear-view mirrors, flush-fitting door handles. Strangely enough, tidying up the back end has had as big an effect upon reducing the drag as tidying up the front, although I must say I don't think very much of the way they've attached this little spoiler here to the boot lid. You can see how crude that join is. Boot itself now increased to 18.7 cubic feet. This is a bit tacky. The little hatch that contains the first aid kit and all the cars we've had has been sort of flapping around in the breeze. But this is very important. They've cut a good 6 inches out of the rear sill to make it easier to hump those big boxes of shopping or the odd bag of cement into the boot. OK, let's leave the saloon version and go on to the hatchback version. 3.5 inches longer than the old car. That's enabled them, among other things, to have a wider opening for the rear door, making it easier to get into the rear seats. And inside, well, I think they raised the feel of the interiors of the new cars beyond all recognition. It's moulded plastic everywhere, of course, across the dash, over your head and on the doors, but done very well. Generally a sense of the whole thing very carefully having been put together. Nice, clean fascia and central console, good ergonomics, some very nice touches. I like the way, for example, they've offset the lock on the glove compartment here so the driver can reach it without breaking his back. And look at these windows. If your child happens to operate the switch and get his hand trapped in it, the sensor not only feels the resistance, it winds the window down a bit, so a very nice touch. But clearly the heart of the matter is what these cars are like to drive. Well, this is the 2-litre CD model, the top of the hatchback range, so as you might expect, it's somewhat spirited. 115 brake horsepower, top speed well over 120 miles an hour, but it's worth noting that all the new Cavaliers have top speeds well over the 100-mile-an-hour mark, apart from the diesel, that is. But perhaps the biggest improvement is in the quality of the ride and the precision of the handling, because they've totally re-engineered the suspensions, giving a much stiffer, much more stable feel. So the nose doesn't dive, for example, when you hit the brakes. There's much less roll on the corners. The car sits very square on its slightly wider track. They've also done a great deal to reduce the wind noise, and there's now very little even at motorway cruising speeds. Now, this car also has the new Vauxhall 4-speed automatic gearbox, totally electronically controlled, with basically 3 modes of operation. There's the normal economy mode. Then you can select the sporting mode, which essentially raises the gear change revs, then you can select the winter mode, which gets you off in third gear to stop wheel spin. Now, obviously, there's a lot more I could say about the new Cavaliers, but the bottom line is that overall they offer a very attractive package indeed. They certainly present Ford with a powerful challenge. Now, so far, Ford has reacted by basically beefing up the Sierra specification, adding in as standard all sorts of items that previously were expensive optional extras. What is clear is certainly that the Sierra Cavalier battle is on again. It's going to be very interesting watching. In summary, the Cavalier SRI Saloon has a 2-litre engine giving 130 horsepower. The top speed is 128 miles an hour, and acceleration to 60 takes just over 9 seconds. Fuel consumption should average about 38 miles a gallon, and the price, £11,065. Now, at the end of the last series, we looked at some of the insurance problems you can get into when you have a serious accident, and a lot of interest was shown in our fact sheet. I'm sorry we couldn't reply to all of you individually, but Chris Goffey has been looking into some of the points raised in your letters.
Now, if the 1,600 or more requests we receive for those fact sheets are anything to go by, many motorists are unhappy with the way their insurance claims are being met. In a number of cases we've come across, the problem seems to centre around what to do with the car when it gets into this sort of state.